Okay, digital music design students, you are in a pickle. I'm not with you in the classroom, and now you have to learn how to do this whole drum design thing, which doesn't really sound that easy. I'm going to be honest with you. I am streaming right now from my home, and I'm using my version of Live. And what I'm showing you, everything you can do in your version of Live. You'll have to forgive me if I'm talking in a weird voice, mainly because I am routing my audio, as you can see, into Ableton and into QuickTime. But because I'm doing that, there's like a half a second delay. So if I put my earpiece in and try to talk, I'm hearing myself after I've just spoken, and it's really messing with my mind. So I'm sorry if I start making these weird pauses like that. It's because I'm putting the earbud in my ear and I have no choice. I have to hear the music. So what I want to show you today is how to make drums only using the 5 provided samples that are in the Adventure Kid waveforms. Let me just clarify with you what these are. Third-party resources, AKWF, Adventure Kid waveforms, noise, pulse, square, triangle. See, I told you. So what can you make with this? You would imagine, well, they're not that intricate. They're kind of boring waves, but if you know what you're doing, you can make something like this. There's my snare. Here's my hi-hat. Got a little bit of trap hi-hat action going on. Here's my kick. And then I have all of my drums together in a drum group, and I have it with the compressor on. You couldn't hear me say that. I just said that's pretty decent. So let's just break this down, going all the way back to the beginning on how I built this. I'm actually going to rebuild it, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Yes, I'm confident that I can remake it. So, actually, no, I won't delete it. I'll just work backwards to see you, to show you how I got to this point. Okay. So the first thing, or rather the last thing I did, was I added this right here. This is a compressor, and this compressor is here in the list of presets and precise. If you want something more aggressive, you could add this flattenator one, which makes the drums sound super cool. But I don't know if you like this kind of cool sounding drums. It's pretty aggressive. So if you want aggressive type drums, then precise would be the one to go with. So that's the drums. And you'll notice here that the drums are, all 3 tracks are put into this drum group. I did this by hitting Command G. So I'm going to ungroup the tracks. Now, if I want to take these 3 tracks and put them in a group, I select them all and I press Command G. Once all 3 are in a group, then I can apply effects, and this effect will now apply to all of the tracks that are in this group. So here are my snare, hi-hat, and kick tracks. You'll notice that for my kick, I'm using a triangle, and for my snare, I'm also using a triangle. Now, the only reason I chose triangle is because when you have a snare or a kick sound, there are 2 elements that happen with these drums. There's the impact or the slap, like when you clap your hands, and then there's the resonance. The resonance is basically the pitch that lingers after that drum has been hit. I'm in my house. I don't have any drums, but if I go to the drum sounds over here, or I go rather to samples and I hit snare, we listen to some of these. Do you hear how some of these are pitched? It's hard to hear because they're so short. Let me keep going though. Missing some samples. Hear how these are all pitched? Now, the reason or the way they sound pitched is because of the resonance of that drum. Now, they both have a slap, an initial impact, and it's a bit of noise. And depending on the sample, the noise might linger longer or shorter. Now let's check out my snare track here. So I have an instrument rack. The way I have this, or the reason why I do, let's see, it's because now I'm going to have to start from scratch with this. That's okay. So what I did is I went to my third-party resources and I grabbed a noise, the noise sample, and made sure it says drop an instrument or sample here. And now that it's here, I can press a note and it just sounds like noise. It's not too helpful. But I'm going to turn this into a rack, and that's Command G, just like what I did with three tracks up there. I'm going to click on this center button. Now I'm going to drag triangle in here. I need to turn loop on for triangle. And now when I press a note, both samples play. Now, this isn't anything like the snare that I had before, but I can get there. A couple of things that you'll want to do is in MIDI effects, we're going to add pitch to the noise sample. We're going to turn this up to like 24. There we go. We want it to be higher. Yes, we could do that here in controls, but it's easier for you, I think, if we just add this pitch effect. The next thing we need to do is mess with the attack, decay, sustain, release, or ADSR. I'm going to turn down the sustain. Now, if I press and hold, it plays and then it stops, even if I'm holding down the note. And you can see I'm still holding it down because the triangle is still playing. The reason why I want this sustained down is because this will provide the tail of the snare. If I want a long tail, I'll turn up the decay. If I want it short, I'll make it shorter. So that takes care of the snare slap or impact or the characteristic sound of a fuzzy snare. So I'm going to change this to noise so I can distinguish the two. I'm going to make this one resonance so that way I know what this one is. Now, same thing, I don't want to hear this sample over and over. Now the same thing is happening as with the noise. That's because I turned down the sustain. I want a higher pitched sample here. So I'm going to take my pitch and I'm going to bring the pitch up. Sure, that sounds fine. If I put them together, there we go. Now it's not perfect. There are a couple of things to consider. Yes, drums should be tuned and in the same key as your chords and your song. Do you hear how the snare is playing a specific note? Bum, bum, bum. Here's the difference if it's not. Hear how this note is off? You don't have to be so precise. Note that the original key for all of these samples is C. So if you go up 12 semitones, that's an octave. If you go up 24, it's 2. This is probably too high for a snare. you could do this, but now this high-pitched snare is just too loud. So I'm going to turn down the resonance here. So now I'm mixing or balancing the two sounds. I actually want to see what this sounds like with the noise put back at 0. And I'm going to make the decay a little longer. Maybe up too high. There we go. So it's not a perfect snare, but for 8-bit, this is pretty good. There we go. So just to show you again, I actually put the pitch down. If I want to go back up, it's fine. It's just going to change the quality of the fuzzy sound of the noise. Sustain is down, decay is up to 1.18. For resonance, the pitch is up 12 semitones, decay is up over a second, sustain is down to nothing. Talking rhythm, because this is snare, we're going to put it on beats 2 and 4 only. You could get creative with this, of course, and you could add you can add it like right here to make it funky, I guess. But because my chords are already really funky, I'm not going to add it. So this is pretty simple. Next is the hi-hat. Now I double-clicked here to make a blank MIDI. Sorry, I have to take my headphone out because it's driving me crazy. To make a blank palette, I'm going to go ahead and click or tap B to draw. And now I'm going to find C3 and I'm just going to draw across. Now that I've drawn across, I just have 16th notes. And that's fine. We want that to be there. We're going to go ahead and remove this. So now we're starting blank slate, just like you guys are. I'm going to add the to hi-hat. I want to add MIDI effect of pitch. And I don't actually have to group this together because the hi-hat is just going to be what it is. I want to turn sustain down all the way. I want to turn the pitch up a lot. Like a lot. So let's just hear what this sounds like. It's not bad, but it's not really sounding like a hi-hat yet. The reason is because the decay has to be pretty short for hi-hats. Like that. That's a really tight hi-hat. The higher I make it, the more it sounds like a hi-hat. Note that these lower pitches don't sound like a hi-hat at all. Now you could automate the decay to make it sound like a closed and not open hi-hat. But that's pretty tricky. You would have to draw it in here in the automation right here. And there should be the last thing you clicked, decay, and it shows decay. And then it would just be for one moment, you would turn it up like this. But that's, you'd really want to put it like right here. There we go. So if you want to do this, it's a little bit more advanced, but it's not impossible. It's just here on envelopes. I click an element here inside of the instrument, go to the MIDI clip, enable envelopes. It's already set to the decay, and I just have to draw it in. So usually we hear hi-hat go open right before the snare, like this. We could even make it more this, and if I want to go back to edit the notes, go like this. There we go. There we go. Now I don't like this personally because it's changing the pitch. So I'm going to go ahead and just undo a lot of what I just did. There we go. So I have my hi-hat. Now, if you want to add the whole trap style hi-hats, I'm going to hit fold so that way I remove everything else. And now I'm going to press Command 1 to make this a lot faster. Then I'm going to draw in some extra notes. There we go. It's just picking some places to add some extra notes and making a pattern out of it. And sometimes less is more. So this is almost what I had up here. I just switched it, that's funny. So here's my original. Sometimes the trill, for lack of a better word, happens right before the snare in trap music, like this. We can add some busier notes right here. There we go. So there is our hi-hat. Again, it's just the noise sample. We've pitched it up 57 semitones, messing with the decay to taste. It should be pretty short though. Now it brings us to the kick. This one's a bit more intense. You'll note I have a chord here, and then I have my noise. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this and recreate it. Third-party resources, noise, Command G to make a group, triangle, going to add this in, turn on loop. There we go. Turn down my sustain, turn down my sustain, and now I have my pattern that I've made with kick. This one is a little bit more complicated, but it's based off of the rhythm I have. So I can select both chords and kick by holding and pressing Command and clicking both clips. So the blue is my kick drum, the purple is my chords. So you can see how they work together. I'll play them both so you can hear. So I'm using a funky rhythm right there, and it's allowing more of a groove. So that's what this little extra note is. Honestly, I don't need it. I could get by with just kick drum on beats 1 and 3, but I want to add a little bit more. So if I'm looking at kick and snare together, they should be alternating just like this. So you'll see here that I've pitched my kick. The reason for that is because I'm going to use this triangle sound and I'm going to pitch it up. Now I'm going to use my MIDI effects. I'm going to use chord on my pitch right here. I'm going to go up 12. You can see these notes are very low. I want to bring these all up an octave. Oh, and by the way, these notes are taken exactly from the bass. So I could take these notes of my kick drum, or rather, I could take my bass notes and bring it over here to my kick drum. And now my kick drum has the same rhythm, except it's a little bit too busy. So I'm just going to modify it, but now I have the same pitches. So I'm going to take this, hit fold so I only see the notes that are used, delete the notes I don't need. Now I'm going up to G, delete the notes I don't need. Same thing. Command D to duplicate, delete the notes I don't need. Now this is really high, isn't it? So there's our normal pitch. So I want to make this a bit louder. So I'm going to add this. There we go. Adding that release helps to add a bit more tail compared to okay, I was wrong. It's the decay. There we go. So I want it to be kind of like hip hop bass or kick where it's really lingering. So I've added a chord. I've dropped down the shift 1 to -12, which is down an octave. Now we need to look at the noise. Now we're going to actually use pitch because we want to make this be the slap. That. We just want a bit of, we're going to turn it down. There we go. Now when I put all of the drums together, now, albeit this kick is nothing like the kicks that you'll find here, which sound very deep and rich, like this. This is probably what you think of when you think of a kick, but because we're using these waveforms, this is what we're limited to. But it works pretty well. So we put all this together. It's taken some time. You'll probably have to rewatch this or stop it and rewind to see how things were done. Again, the way we started out was with this group together, and then we had the compressor audio effect on here. Note that also the hi-hat is way too loud in a mix, so you could drop it down in half and it would be just fine. You really don't need to hear the hi-hat so much. It's going to have to be a bit of experimentation and just accepting like this is 8-bit music, and this is actually what it sounds like. If you were to look up an 8-bit mix on YouTube, you'll probably hear tracks just like this to some degree. So this track that you're listening to was not made with Scalar. This is me using tools in Ableton. Now, it's a little bit hard at first, but it's not impossible to do it. And I trust that you guys can do it. It's just going to take some time. If you have questions about how I did this, please leave a comment in the area down below here on Google Classroom. I hope you guys have fun with this. Don't push yourselves too hard. If you have any questions or you're really frustrated, you're not sure, and you just need one-on-one help, that's fine. Or maybe a lot of you do. We can do another group call next week. But I wanted to give you some information on how to get started building your drums from waveforms. So have a great day, you guys. Hang in there, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.